we are the republic, not the politicians. We're the republic. That's who we are. It's our responsibility. No one's going to come and save us. We have to save ourselves.
Hey, I'm Chris Januszewski and welcome to the Rebellious Times Podcast. Today, I'm super excited to introduce you to Steven Eugene Kuhn, citizen servant leadership architect, best-selling author, and entrepreneur. How are you doing, Steven?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for taking your time out. Where are you calling in from?
Right now, I'm calling in from Turkey, southern coast on the Mediterranean, looking at it right now.
Okay. Oh, it's an interesting action over that way of the world at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Saw some interesting messages coming out, but we won't get too much into that. So I saw you online. You have some really interesting perspectives on a lot of things that kind of resonate with me. And there are some really interesting things for us to get into here from a perspective of what the Rebellious Times podcast is really about, right? Obviously, business and startups and helping people find their path in this complex era where AI is changing everything. You know, people are questioning things around them and trying to figure out how to survive and thrive in this new world. And I think you've got some incredible perspectives and experience to share, and we can get into some fun conversations. But before we do that, love you to share your background. Tell us about you, tell us about Steven, kind of where you're from, what you've done, where you're at.
Sure. I'm an American, and I left for the military when I was 19 years old and was shipped to, after boot camp in Kentucky, I went to Germany. And I was stationed there for a total of 7 years, at which time I also went to the Gulf War. Came back from the Gulf War in Iraq, and I got out, but I think a year later, maybe a year and 6 months later, I got out and stayed in Germany, and where I started my business journey. So you got to realize when you get out of the military at 27 years old, you're basically 19 again because you have no experience in the civilian world. So I had a learning curve that I had to catch up on. So I wanted to open up some businesses. Within a year, I had a cocktail bar open, then I had another cocktail bar, then another cocktail bar, and so on and so forth. I ended up opening and operating over the next 30 years, about 20 businesses in 10 countries. I was a co-founder of a political organization, non-party political organization in Germany, which became the largest in Germany, and then it switched over and turned into the party that now known as the AfD, the Alternative for Germany. Nothing to do with alternatives, but the Alternative for Germany, it's more conservative. And I've advised, in those 10 countries, I've advised most of the parliaments or politicians or leaders, worked for people like Mick Jagger, Olivia Newton-John, Andrea Bocelli. And, all of that taught me one thing, is that people want to be led by someone who already knows who they are. That's it. That's the whole thing. It isn't title. It isn't where you're from. It's like, I know who I am. I lead with certainty and my abilities to deploy my genius in any given situation. That's who people follow.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you for your perspective. And wow, what a journey you've had there. So let's, on the subject of leadership. So we, as people living in the West, we have governments. We look to the governments to look after us, to take care of us, to make sure that we thrive, we have the things we need, and we evolve as society, right? And when we look at leaders today, so I'm from the UK, so I look at the likes of Keir Starmer, right? And I live in the US, so I look at Donald Trump, or previously Joe Biden, or Barack Obama, and I look at the people that work with them, for them, right? And it's difficult to watch in every country that I have associations with, because it feels like we're not represented by them. It feels almost like they're representing somebody else, and they're in some ways against us. And I know this will come across to some people that, don't go down these conspiracy theory paths, whatever. But I'm just saying what I see. I've been through several years since during COVID where, people were pushed to not say what they see, to not say what they think, to conform or feel excluded. But I think it feels like we're kind of past that now, and we're back to being able to articulate exactly what we're seeing without feeling uncomfortable that it won't fit the standard perspective that everybody wants you to see. So I would just love to get your perspective on what you're seeing in the world and in terms of leadership and how we look to our leaders.
Well, politics is about one thing, and that's representative. You have a representation of your wants, wishes, and needs as a citizen by the politicians who are in office. Basically, a really simple job. They take the office, they keep their integrity, they listen to you, and they go do what you want. That's pretty much the job. However, that's disappeared because all these special interest groups, lobby groups, PACs, CPACs, super PACs, all these different groups that are paying people in order to get their way. And that's how our politicians have lost their way, almost to the point where they can't even get out of it, right? So we need to clean house, but a direct attack will never work, right? So the only thing, when I was doing research for my whole doctrine, I looked at the things that actually worked in history, and that was always a parallel structure that was built. Not a head-on collision, not a battle, just, hey, we're going to start over here, and we're going to have accountability with these regulations, with, in our case, honesty, integrity, transparency, moral courage, and accountability, and that's what we lead by. Now, it all starts with self-leadership. Most people underestimate self-leadership massively because they skip it, right? They want the audience before they've done any of the internal work. And the point is this: you can't give what you don't have. It's the same thing most people give from an empty cup. If you can think of yourself as the pyramid of champagne glasses where you pour the one on the top, the cups underneath it only get filled after that one's full. So when we learn to lead ourselves, well, you can't lead properly until you lead yourself. And that's not like motivational quote or anything. That's like the prerequisite. It isn't about arrogance. It's someone who operates from completeness, and the cup is full, so it pours onto others. The guys who are loud, the people who are loud, they got something to prove. They're still searching. When when someone's loud, I'm a leader, they still don't know who they are. Because a man who already knows who he is or she is, which a woman, doesn't need to prove it to anyone in the room. And also, it's integrity over popularity. And I went through a lot of times in my life where I had to, and I was on German TV when the war broke out in 2003 because I wrote a book about it. And in front of millions of people on TV, it was 5 million people, it was the biggest show ever they had. They asked me if I support the war in Iraq. And it was the first time I was ever asked that question. And I had to answer it. My mind was like, man, if I say no on the TV right now, every American's going to hate me. But I have to stay true to who I am. I know who I am, and I'm against war, so I said it. And I got death threats, the whole works, but it was liberating. Because in public, I made a statement about who I am and my beliefs, and not what I thought that they wanted to hear, just like every politician does. And so therefore, our world today is led by people who are performing or being paid to perform, or are performing in hopes that they'll get paid higher to perform even better. And in order to sort of knock that out, we're creating a parallel infrastructure of accountability with an organization I founded called Take America Back, jointab.us. And we have a doctrine of 5 books that teaches citizens how to become servant leaders and how to take the government back, starting at the lowest level, which is where all politics starts. If you look at Raytheon selling weapons to Ukraine, that starts at a local city council or a county commission where they okay the factory, right? And they give them tax breaks. And then the citizens have to pay the taxes, and those weapons eventually get to Ukraine. Everything starts local, and everything in leadership starts internal.
Thank you. That perspective, it in some ways gives me some comfort, because I think people are slowly waking up to the fact. Everybody's always known that politicians, in inverted commas, they take backhanders, and it's almost like they're incompetent, they're just not capable, and so we let them off, right? There's no real accountability. But when you start to see certain things, and when you start to see money involved, and the fact that foreign interests can invest either directly or indirectly in our politicians to push policies and take certain positions, then you start to think this is real. And if someone's to see this and then speak to their circle, their friends or family about it, often the friends and family will say, well, that's just how it is. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. Don't concern yourself with it. Just try and make a load of money, right? Try and be the one that makes however millions, and pull your tiny group out and just leave everybody else in the mud. And that's the mentality, right? But in my mind, and I've always been like this, and it's not always served me well, but I think every person is kind of worth the same value, right? Whether it's your boss at work, your CEO,
Absolutely.
or a person who does lower level manual work, right? Everybody is worth the same. And this goes for politicians, this goes for the president, this goes for the Pope, this goes for everybody. And so I really struggle with the fact that people can get away with this, and it's just how it is. But when I think what I can do, what do I do? Do I put on some commando gear and walk into Washington, D.C. and start banging my head on the railings around the it's not going to do anything, right? It might make me feel better, but then I'll get arrested, thrown in prison, then I'm out of the game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To have a perspective that, okay, you can't necessarily walk straight up to this public figure XYZ and make them stop. But you can start locally and you can build it from the bottom. That is a really tangible.
Well, and to make it even more tangible for everyone listening, think about it like this. You inform yourself globally so you can see the patterns of fractals and loops of what's going on, because every pattern, every fractal, every loop that happens internationally happens locally too. So when you see it constantly on the news, and you see it whether you want to see it or not, we're trained to feel disconnected from government because we've been trained to watch that international, to watch Washington, to watch national, what's going on, what's the state of the republic. The state of the republic is in your backyard. It's on your street. It's in your city council, your school board, your county commission, the special boards, and once you realize, well, I see what's happening there as far as the patterns go, that's happening here too. How can I get in there and disrupt that pattern before it goes up, right? And that's what local service is all about, and remember, community over complaining is what I always say. Inform yourself. You can complain if you want, but it's not going to get you anywhere. Influence is built face to face. Everyone knows that. Outrage is built where? On a screen, right? So they're not the same thing, and they don't produce the same results, obviously. You might be able to change the world. You might not be able to change the world tomorrow, but you can show up, let's say, at a school board meeting, and you can show up at your county commissioner's meeting and know his name. You can know your neighbors, right? Local elections are won in conversations and not commercials, right? A candidate who knocks on 20 doors in a low turnout precinct frequency will always win. And that's not an exaggeration. That's actually how it is, because 70% of all local elections across America, over 500,000 local seats, not including precincts, there's 700,000 precinct seats, 70% run uncontested. That means there's no one running against them. And another 100,000 are vacant, empty. Right now in North Dakota, there's 3 cities without a mayor because no one ran. No one wants the job. Wow. So the opportunity is there, not to mention the 100,000 vacant precinct seats, 100,000 vacant in local government seats. 70% of those 500,000 seats are running uncontested. There's a massive opportunity. Let's break it down even more, because this is a math problem, real simple. 3,144 counties in America, right? If we have 10 seats per county that adopt the Take America Back doctrine, that's 31,444 people, 1 in 8,000 adult Americans, or 1/100th of 1% of Americans need to stand up, know the doctrine, lead with integrity, and listen to the people and do what they want. It's simple. It really is simple, but we're comfortable. We're happy. We're in debt. Weaponized debt's a huge problem, right? Because people who won't stand up because they might lose their job, lose their mortgage, lose their livelihood. These are all issues that I cover in the books. The first book's identity, second book's all about financial freedom, getting out of debt legally, things like that. So I would say this: what you can touch is what you can affect. What you can touch is what you can change. You can't touch Washington. You can't touch, Trump. You can't touch Netanyahu. You can't, no one. What you can touch is what you can change. And I promise you, there's cities out there right now that are very close to becoming a city of tap, right? That people are like, okay, we're done with all this BS. We're going to take care of our citizens, our constituents. The citizens are going to take care of us, and we're going to have a city like Plato, Texas. They've had a surplus of budget for the last 10 years in a row. One of the most profitable cities in all of America, 10 years in a row. Why? Because they have great leadership, local leadership. It has nothing to do with state or federal. So it's all up to us. Do you want to stand up? Do you want to stay on the sofa? You want to spend 3 nights a month going to your precinct chair, as a precinct chair in your precinct and trying to help run the election? Do you want to take a per diem to go be on the city council and spend maybe 10 days a month in the city council? Look, what are you going to do otherwise? Complain? Let it happen? It's our choice. It's right in front of us, and we are one of the last countries on the planet where this is even possible.
Thank you. So, in terms of local politics, we're talking about here. I guess my own personal perspective. I don't know the viewpoint of anyone else. I almost view local politicians is a breed of their own, right? Somebody who's interested in doing that and giving the time to that. And I don't fully understand how the process would work or how to get involved, but it's something anybody can look up.
Well, no, I made it even easier. Like I said, I took care of everything for everybody. If you go to our website, jointab.us, on the upper right-hand side, it says find your seat. It drops down, you put in your zip code, and it tells you all the vacant seats in your zip code. Click, apply. There you go.
Brilliant.
So no excuses anymore.
So let's talk. Okay, so somebody does, it takes an interest in the local community, wants to actually take action, right, at a local level where they can affect the community. So they're taking their first step into politics. Seeing what we're seeing at the highest level of politics, I'm sure everybody starts, well, I'm not sure everybody starts with good intentions. Some people must start with good intentions. They want to change the world.
Most.
They want to fight the dirty behavior and the underhand, selfish, people. But at some point, they seem to get swept up, and it's really hard to identify anybody in politics who's genuinely not got some allegiance or some leverage against them from some quiet background entity.
You're right.
How does that work?
Well, it's not like people think. They don't come up to you with a suitcase with $1 million in it and saying, "Hey, do this and we'll pay you." That's not how it works. Corruption starts with good people, because good people want to do things, and corruption doesn't arrive as a transaction. It arrives as a gradual accommodation, like a small compromise here, a reasonable exception there, and a year later, you don't remember where you crossed the line. They're gonna invite you into the group, to the boys club or the girls club. They're gonna introduce you to the mayor, to the governor, maybe to the senator. All of a sudden you're in these rooms and you're like, wow, like I'm with these people, and they start sort of carrying you.
Yeah.
One day they ask you for a small favor. It's not a big deal, and you're like, they're just like, well, you're gonna give all this up? Oh, okay, I'll do it. And that's just one little incremental. And next thing you know, they look in the mirror and they're like, what have I become? That's truly how it works most of the time. And the only way to combat that is sticking to your principles. Is you live in a way that can survive daylight, right? I can't be controlled by darkness. That's sort of the standard, not the aspiration. But the alternative is, I guess you could say, standing somewhere you never intended to stand, defending decisions you would have questioned that someone else would have made, right? And remember, a person in debt's controllable. When your mortgage is due and your kids need food and you're vulnerable, that vulnerability offers a promise of security that someone can give you, right? Because financial independence isn't about wealth. It's about the ability to say no. Everyone thinks financial independence is, oh man, I'm rich. No. If you can say no to anything, then you're wealthy. That's financial independence, right? It isn't having $1 million in the bank account, because you can still be beholden. You still have a mortgage. I mean, I know people have, they make, a couple $1 million a year, and they're maxed out on their credit cards. It's just that they can't even make it. One of my family members was one of them, and they're completely controlled. They will do almost anything to stay afloat. So it's real simple. There's the entire structure out there that's going on of corruption, which even those that are corrupting you don't see it as corruption, right? A lot of times. Come on, man, take it for the team. Come on, this is for the team. Let's do it. We got to win. We got to win. I believe, honestly and truly, there's a way that we can, little by little, take America back through people who have integrity and who stick to the morals, who know who they are and won't sell out, and they operate by that standard, period, no matter what. I've done it for years, and it's cost me dearly. And I mean dearly, everything I had. But I wouldn't change it today. I wouldn't go back and do it. I would still say no. And there's something, I can give you money. You can give me money or whatever, but no one can give you your integrity. Nobody. Once that's gone, it's gone. And guess what? Everybody sees it. Everybody. And whether that matters to you or not is also a moral test.
So integrity, maybe everybody's born with it and then they lose it, or it has to be developed through values, through your upbringing, right, and the way that you behave, and I guess it's the things that you do when people are not watching, right? That's your character.
Absolutely.
But I went to an event in the Capitol building in Austin for the first time a couple of weeks back, Texas Ventures Forum, a startup event. Really fun event, some great speakers. And to get to the function room, I had to walk through the building, first time I've been in there. And it's quite impressive. And you see all these pictures of former governors on the wall and people who look important. And you get a feeling that you're kind of swept up in a place that's important. It's a place where things happen, right? And so I can imagine a politician in there and they get to meet the governor and they get to meet this and they feel like they don't want to lose that because they get a little rush from it.
Yeah.
I got a little rush just walking through there.
Of course.
But how do
It's
you...
on stage anywhere you go on stage, when you're the center of attention, it's hard to say no to that. I mean, I have a speaking gig in 2 days here in Turkey. And I already know I'm going to go. I'm going to show up a little bit late. I'm going to go in. I'm going to speak. I'm going to leave. It's like I don't need that sort of accolades and oh wow, I don't need any of that stuff. And that's not because I know like I have enough of everything. That's not it at all. It's just that if I stay, it'll be to help teach somebody something, right? It'll be someone who truly needs some assistance, some help, a few tips, a reminder of who they are, who they're supposed to be. I'll do that. But I don't do that endless networking, hobnobbing kind of thing. And I know in America it's huge. There's so many live events in America, it's ridiculous. And I've been to one, and I remember I went in Tampa with my wife and walked in the room. The whole room turned toward us. Like, who's that? And then afterwards there was a line of people waiting to talk to us, and it was basically everyone just wanting something from us. It wasn't like, hey, let me learn from you. It wasn't like, hey, let me pay you to help me. It was like, can you do something for me? Like, because you're cool, or you seem like a guy that I want to be attached to. And that's our society. People are always looking for, like you said, leverage. They're always looking for leverage, good and bad. And you got to protect who you are. You got to protect your integrity. You got to protect your knowledge. You got to protect your family and everything around it. And that's why first of all, you got to be fit. That's book 3. That's health, wellness, and resilience. Book 4 is information warfare. Right? How do you recognize propaganda? How do you recognize leverage? How do you recognize all that stuff? We teach about that too. And then the 5th book is called Incorruptible. How do you stay, uncorrupted? These are all true stories in these books that I went through. I was corrupted. They tried to control me. The whole works. So it's true stories, and then the antidote to it.
Thank you. Yeah. So switching gears slightly. So we have, things going on in Iran right now, a war. I don't know to what extent it's back and forth. We don't see a lot on the media. We don't see a lot of Ukraine war footage on the media.
No.
For whatever reason, we're in a world where there is everything is recorded. Every teenager that has a fight in school gets recorded, right? But there's a war, and there are wars in different parts of the world. We don't see any footage. Maybe that's a conscious agreement between the two sides that we won't share because we don't want anyone to see our tactics or weapons or something, right? And we're given reasons for wars, right? And for the Iraq War in the UK, Tony Blair, weapons of mass destruction. They've got weapons of war. Well, we've all seen videos of nuclear bombs going off. Shit, we better go and squash them, right? Yeah. It turns out there weren't any there. Apparently, every week, they're 2 weeks away from enriching uranium in Iran, right? For the last 20 years, almost got the bomb. I don't know how they figure out the timelines as to being, okay, they're 2 weeks away in the process, right? Because if they just go on Google, they can probably figure out the process to enrich that last 2 weeks worth, right? At any point, it's a narrative. We're surrounded by narratives.
Exactly what it is. Right? There were, by the way, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, but not how you think. What happened was, you remember Iraq was fighting Iran. You remember that back in back there was 8-year war or something like that, and the Americans had sold them chemical weapons, and that's when Netanyahu stood up in the UN and said they have weapons of mass destruction, because Saddam had threatened and said, if you come get me, I'm going to tell everybody where I got these. So we had to go in first quickly to make sure that we recovered those before anyone else saw them, so that he wouldn't get busted. So we said, there was none there. Because if we said there was some there, they would ask where'd they come from. This is a true story, by the way, right? This is an absolute true story. I was in Iraq. I got hit with sarin and cyclosarin nerve gas. My liver's shot because of it, right? My whole unit was KO. We were just out of it. Nerve gas, hardcore. To this day, we all suffer from issues from that. And that wasn't Iraqi nerve gas. That was American nerve gas and mustard gas, by the way. So, it's there were weapons of mass destruction. It's just they weren't his. They were given to him by the American government. And so, and as far as Iran goes, I don't. They've been days away from nuclear weapons for the last 25 years. So I don't even know what to call that. That's obviously a narrative. Just put it this way: if you're triggered in any way, positive or negatively, by anything that you see on social media, the news, or wherever, it's a trigger. Either way, whether it's positive or negative, it's a trigger, it's a narrative, it's a loop. It's just what they want to keep you in that constant, consumption loop, so to say, of news and things. And again, to your point, we don't see much, do we? We don't see much of anything. What you see in Ukraine is all the people getting kidnapped off the streets, sent to the front line. There's over 2 million Ukrainians who died. That's not written anywhere, but that's official from the numbers that we got. And you hear all this stuff about Russia bad, boo boo boo, all this kind of stuff. That's also not entirely true. I know people that live there, Irish, British, American. They live there with their families, and they love it, and it's amazing, and it's cheap, and it's high morals, and the family traditions is still, the family values still count, and all these kind of things. So it's all narrative, man. The truth, who freaking knows anymore?
Well, yeah, that's a problem, isn't it? It's a problem getting to the truth. And I think what some people, including myself, once they see that there are things in history and things in science and things in politics that don't make sense, and the whole pandemic, right, and the response and the things that were omitted. It's not so much what they do; it's what they don't do that really gives signals that some of the things we used to believe in and trust, we can't trust. And so then you start to reel back and say, wow, I don't trust anything, and I'm going to start from the beginning, and I'm going to figure it out myself and use my intuition and discernment and, God forbid, critical thinking, right?
Common sense, yeah.
Yeah, God forbid that, right? I wouldn't want to believe your own eyes.
Why?
So there's a spectrum, right? There's a spectrum of people, how they view the world, and there's disconnect, and there's majority of people view the world as very organic, and we have elections, and we have these politicians, and politicians in our country make these decisions. The country next door makes their decisions. Sometimes you lie, sometimes you don't. Everybody's working for their own country. Then there's the other end of the spectrum that says, no, like literally everybody's at the top is working for the same masters, whether it be your Trumps, your Putins, your Saddam Husseins, whatever, and it's all part of a giant conspiracy from a small group of people that have run things for hundreds or potentially thousands of years and are kind of playing with us like an ant farm. And so I'm trying to figure out where we are on that spectrum, but I'd love to get your perspective.
Ant farm, 100%. I know it personally. Like when I co-founded the Civil Coalition in Germany, I met a lot of people. The CIA tried to recruit me. They tried to recruit me for a senator in America, in Illinois. Opus Dei tried to recruit me. I went through interviews with all these people, spoke to all these people, went to the meetings, and did all kinds of stuff. And they all led back to the same sort of consortium, if you will. And it's all with almost the same agenda. The one thing you got to realize is there's those people that are realists, like we're talking about right now. Like, use your common sense, look what's happening, believe your own eyes, believe your intuition. They're not organized, right? The enemy's organized. The enemy is organized and very well funded, right? And that is for a specific reason. That's not just because they want to be in power, it's because they want to control, right? And you see, common sense, right? A girl gets raped in England. The guy gets off because it didn't last long enough to be considered a rape. The father puts something on social media, he goes to jail. Tell me if that makes sense to you. Of course not, right? So why is that even a question? Because we're being told that's the way it has to be. And people who believe that either are profiting from the system, or they've embedded it into their identity so long that the extraction of that from their identity would have their entire world collapse. Or three, and I know plenty of these, they're like, look, man, like you said, get rich, make your money, care about you, I don't care about anybody else, and do what you want to do, let the world die. As long as I have money, I can travel, I can do. I have a buddy who during COVID, he was traveling all over the place. I'm like, how are you doing this, man? He goes, it's called the Important Business Travelers Program. I'm like, what is that? He goes, private jet. Private jet. You could fly anywhere you wanted during COVID if you could charter a private jet or get on a private jet. They didn't even check you. They didn't test you. No, just in and out, like no problem whatsoever. So that's what people are going for. And that's what they want. Like, okay, if I'm rich enough, I don't have to worry about any of this stuff. But look, legacy isn't built because you're rich. Legacy is built by what you leave behind. And that's not just money, right? What are you leaving behind? I can say, and I know this was never my intention, that the Federalist Papers were written to ratify the Republic of America, right? The Civil Servant Leader's Doctrine, the 5 books, were written to defend that republic. That's why I wrote them. And I can say that I've put them up there at that level so that they carry through time. Now, they're not, literature masterpieces. They're more like how-to books, right? But they're very simple, very logical, very practical about how every citizen can pick up that book, and by book 5, you're like, I can absolutely run this country. And if we have enough people like that, we're going to start doing it, and we're going to take America back. It's just the way it is. It's a math problem, like I said in the beginning.
It'd be amazing if we can do that, get enough density of people to take this perspective. And
31,444 people, man. That's all we need, Chris. 31,444 people.
31,444.
Yep. Because there's 3,144 counties. We get 10 people in each county, dude. We're on board.
I'm glad you didn't say 33,333.
No. Yeah. No, I'm not. They tried to recruit me too. Nope, didn't happen.
Yeah,
I have a friend in. Hang
on. What do you mean they tried to recruit you? Tell me what happened. How did they?
Well, you get interviewed by people, right? And I know when I'm being interviewed, and it's never called an interview. It's just it's hey, come over and check us out, see what's going on, And I went to different meetings, met different people at different dinners and things like that, and you can see where they're feeling you out. So I'd purposely say things that would completely disregard me from any kind of selection. And I remember when I went to Opus Dei, the headquarters. Opus Dei is the hardcore Catholic branch of the Vatican that actually does all the operations in the Vatican. They're the ones, the women who wear that chastity, that chain around their leg when they have bad thoughts, they hit it so they bleed and stuff like that. When they interviewed me, I walked in, I'm like, oh hell no, like this is a total recruitment. So I said I wasn't there for a minute, and he goes, okay, you can leave. Because I was like, what's this about? Who are you? What's going on? I didn't respect at all, like, oh, thank you for having me. And, oh, very kind of you. Oh, my goodness, what a beautiful picture on the wall of your leader. Like, I was like, what do you want from me? He's like, do you believe in God? I'm like, of course I believe in God. Jesus Christ, the whole works. Yeah, of course. What's up? I was talking. And he's like, okay, you can leave now. We're done.
It's just a shame. You should have played him for a little bit. Maybe they would have let you go underneath.
No, well, I did that with the senatorship of Illinois. And that was some freak, because I was living in Zurich, Switzerland at the time, and these guys were courting me. They gave me the whole plan, how it's going to work, where I'm going to do, where I'm going to go. They told me I was the poster boy for the Democratic Party because I'm big, I'm 6'4", I'm 240. I have an MBA. I fought in the war. I got a Bronze Star, like perfect, like checklist is what they said, poster boy. And I said, well, I'm Republican, and they're like, well, it doesn't matter. And I was like, oh shit. And then I went along with it for like 3 months, and I went through interviews and meetings, and they set me up with 2 jobs, one in the UN, one in NATO, UN and UNESCO, one in Geneva, one in Austria, paying like $300,000 a year, just sit there for a year with a title, not do anything, and then I could go to America and become the senator, because then I have a track record in the government, right? They had it all set up, man. And yeah, it's just all, I could go through the whole thing. I'm not going to mention names, but the funniest thing was, or the scariest thing was, when I finally turned him down, because I talked to my buddy in Berlin, who is a German royal, whose family left during the Second World War because his grandfather was one of the ones in Operation Valkyr that tried to kill Hitler, right? So they had to flee the country. He told me, watch out for these people, man, because they're using you, like completely using you. I'm like, well, I know. So I asked him a question. I said, well, what are the issues that I'm going to talk on? Because I have things that I care about. And they're like, Steven, what don't you understand about poster boy? And I was like, okay. Nah. And I told them, I said, let me think about it. I told them, I can't do this. And they said, you're the stupidest and the bravest person that we've ever met. Stupid because nobody turns us down. You'd be the most famous guy in America. You're one of 100 senators. Everyone will know who you are, know your name. You make a lot of money. And I was like, nope. And they said, and you're the dumbest because now you'll never do anything again of significance. And man, they proved it. Well, I tell you, it took 10 years out of my life. It was tough. Everything that I touched, everybody I worked with, every partner I had, they all walked away. Things crashed, things died, money lost. It was like constant. But the two people that tried to recruit me was a guy from Chicago who was a member of a health club that I was in. And his wife was the CEO of Switzerland for a certain pharmaceutical company. I met them, and they came to my house. I went to their house, and they came to my place in Hungary. And when I was going back and forth. And after I said no, I let everything cool down for 2 weeks, and I went back to their house. I'm like, let me see what's up. They were gone. House was empty. Went to the pharmaceutical company. Like, who? What are you talking about? She never worked here before. Yeah, I called his son, who I had talked to multiple times, who was a retired Marine living in Hamburg, Germany. Phone was shut down. His phone was shut down. Her phone was shut down. Never saw him again to this day. I got pictures of them with me. Never saw him. I even hired private investigators to try to find him. I did reverse searches and everything. Could never found him again.
Are you telling me this whole thing was staged as a performance to draw you in?
It was probably what they call the deep state. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just some doofus, running a business in Switzerland and in Hungary because I had two. And suddenly when the clouds cleared, I was like, holy shit, and I was in danger this whole time. I had no idea. Because hey, my friend, I met, I'm not gonna say who it is, but it was somebody that everybody knows, right? To sort of woo me. And Steven, you're fantastic, man. You're like perfect. You will be famous everywhere, all this kind of stuff, And at first it got me, But I talked to the German in Germany. He was Sven von Stor. His wife is the vice chair of the party in Germany, the most popular, largest party in Germany. My partner, her and he are my partners in that business, or was a business. And he said, Steven, because I told him, I said, maybe I should go full-time politics, because but I need to earn a living, so I need to get paid for that. And he goes, if you earn money with politics, you're done. You might as well just hang up your hat right now, because then you'll just be one of them. If you're in politics, you have to be independent. You cannot accept money from anybody for doing anything in politics. And they've held that true to this day. And that's why they're the only ones in the German government that are not paid off, that are not beholden, that say what they want to say, that do what they want to do. And nobody can stop them, because the people want them.
Wow. So we need these 31,444 in the US.
People who are strong, that aren't worried about losing something, look, man, in the end, I'd live in a cardboard box under a bridge. I don't give a shit. I don't need anything, right? What's this about? What's our life about, really? Is it about amassing cars and stuff and TVs and flat screens? I don't care about any of that stuff, right? And none of it. I care about one thing, making the world a better place. It's our mission. Look, if we don't rise above our own humanity, our own, let's say, physical needs, then we're just slaves, man. We're slaves to the system. We're slaves to the consumption system, especially in America. When we go home, it's like, wow, man, after 2 or 3 weeks, I'm like, I can't shop anymore. I can't go grocery shop anymore. I don't want to go to Marshall's. I don't want to go to Macy's. I don't want to go to Neiman Marcus. I'm done with that shit. I don't want to buy anything else. It's like that's all they do. Whereas in the rest of the world, you sit in a cafe for 3 hours and you have a conversation. When's the last time you did that in America? Yeah. Maybe in the bar, but try to find a cafe that's not commercialized and franchised to death, where it's just in and out, quick food, boom, boom, boom. And they're throwing the check on the table to get you out of there so they could, turn the tabletop over to make more money. It's just consumption, go. And, we've gotten into this flow of buy, sleep, eat, buy, sleep, eat. That's basically what we are as a society, and I don't want to generalize, but looking over the vast majority, that's what's happened. And the very few people that can stand up and say, I don't want to do this anymore. I care about my family. I care about my neighborhood. I care about my city, my county, whatever. I'm going to read those books. I'm going to step up. And we actually have a course coming out, so you'll be certified. So there'll be a public record of who's certified as a TAB leader, Citizen Servant Leader. It's called CSL course, Citizen Servant Leader course. And so when you go to the voting block, and you look and you say, oh, I wonder if this guy's on there, this gal's on the Citizen Servant Leader. Oh my gosh, he's certified. I want to vote for this guy. That's the plan. 50 state chapters, 3,144 county chapters, a media center, and a training center. And we want to give scholarships to people who run. Right now, I have 2 books that I don't sell. I only give them to people who applied for a seat or have gotten a seat. And these are books, the how-to, like the how-to, how to stay clean. What do you say? What do you say when you don't know what to say? What do you say to the people that are trying to pressure you? How do you get out of this? How do you get out of that? I even have cheat sheets you can cut out and put in your wallet in case you forget, and you can pull it out and look at it. And like, that's how far I went. I mean, I really put all the way down to like kindergarten level, and like, this is how you do everything. Go to the website, find your seat, read the books, take the course, get in office. Here's how you do it. And once you're in office, here's how you stay in office. It's how you stay clean. Like, the whole process from A to Z is mapped out. And I did it by myself with one IT guy. So if I can do that, what can you do?
People need to step up, right? It's and it's amazing that you put this together, and thank you for doing that on behalf of.
And it took probably 6 months to do all that, but I gained 1.3 million followers, and they've now throttled the reach, so it stopped basically. 1.3 million followers across all platforms except for X, that keeps growing. And we have 35,000 subscribers, 2,000 paid subscribers, because you can sponsor us every month for like $6, $12, $24, $48. And a lot of people choose to do that because that's the only way we can keep going, right? I pumped all my money into this thing, the website and the APIs and the books and the editing and all this kind of stuff. So, and we're coming out with a whole new financial tool for Tab coming out in the next 3 or 4 months. We'll be launching, which is super exciting, and it allows people to become a little bit more financially free, spend less on the services they need every day, all in one app with Tab, the whole works, and with a debit card, right? That actually earns you interest, 3% interest a month. So there's a lot coming out that we're trying to do in order to make this self-sustained, because I got to tell you, I've been courted by a few different people that would like to put money into this and help it grow and expand faster, but then I'd have to do what they wanted, right? And I won't do that. And so a way to make sure that we're funded only by citizens is to give them a service that they need and that they actually get it for free, and we just get them a little bit of a margin off of whatever they pay. That's it. So if you use your debit card right now, where do the service charges go? Goes to the bank, right? Now, use ours, half of that goes back to Tab so we can keep building. So you're paying it either way, right? Just this time, half of it's going to Tab to help us build out this doctrine, set up the state chapters, set up the county chapters, and move forward to take America back. Look, man, I always say this: we are the Republic, not the politicians. We're the Republic. That's who we are. It's our responsibility. No one's going to come and save us. We have to save ourselves.
Thank you. I think, it appears that the people are under a spell, right? What motivates me is for my kids to, in however many years, when they're older and adult, and they look back at what was happening at this time, which is crazy times, to see the things our leaders and celebrities are doing with children, when the things happening to children are mind-blowing. And for my kids to turn around in 10, 20 years or whatever and say, hey, Dad, why didn't you do anything? And for me to then say, well, I was just one man who couldn't. Like, it's so horrific, the things that we know to be happening now, that to not take some action, and then immediately the man puffs his chest up and wants to go and fight, right? And you see, unfortunately, what's happened in Belfast over the last week. Yeah. Terrible incident. Who knows to what extent that was manufactured, right, to get a response, but the men have responded as they would. But that doesn't necessarily, to some extent, that violence plays into the hands of the people who are.
Of course it does. But let's go back a little bit further. Yeah, maybe it was orchestrated. A lot of people are saying that in order to get this reaction, so they could then clamp down on it. But if they weren't there in the first place, it never would have happened. It couldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So, right, it's just like the Ukraine war. It started in 22. No, it didn't. Started in 14. No, it didn't. Started in 2012. No, it didn't. It started in 1990. No, it didn't. It started in 1989. It depends how far back you want to go, according to your narrative, where everything started. So for me, if you don't have mass immigration of unskilled military-aged men that do not want to work or do not work, don't want to assimilate, don't want to make a difference in the country, then this wouldn't have happened. Whether you wanted to orchestrate it or not, it wouldn't have happened. Right? At least not the way it happened. And so how far back do you want to go? That's always what I always say, and it's horrible what happened up there. And it's not the first time. You remember in June 25, 2 Romans raped a girl in Ballymore, or whatever it's called, Ballymain, or what it's called. And the city did the same thing. You just didn't hear about it. They went so far as they burned down houses, pulled immigrants out of their offices, the Romans out of their houses and stuff. 60% of the immigrants left that town for good. So when you see something like that happen, you're like, oh, it worked with that time. Let's do it again. So it's obvious that the people are going to react. I mean, what would you do?
Yeah.
What would you do? That was your brother or your sister, dude. I don't think I could control myself.
Yeah, you do the same thing.
Yeah.
What we need is, in parallel to that, and to try and control that to some extent, is people to take this this civil servant leadership action where you've laid out the plan, you've laid out what they can do in a peaceful and effective way, and to get it to a certain density where we can start to make it impact. So
there's a saying, real quick, there's a saying I have. It's called "Lead Where You Live," and where it comes from is this: the Revolutionary War. When we fought against the Redcoats, they're like, "Come out in the field and stand in a row and let us shoot you in the chest. And then when you guys fall, we'll shoot the guys behind you, and you can shoot us, and we'll be gentlemen about it." And Americans are like, "Nope, we're going to fight where we live. We know the bridges, we know the walls, we know the barns, we know our backyards. That's where we're going to fight. We're going to fight and lead where we live, and that's why we won. And that's what we have to do now. We have to lead where we live, in our house, in our city, in our county, in our state." Right? That's how we win, one by one.
Steven, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope to have you on the show again sometime. Thank you so much, and thanks for the work you're doing there. And I want to be a civil servant leader myself.
Excellent. Looking forward to it.
Take care.
Take care.